Michael knew the place was out of his league the moment he pulled open the heavy glass door. The willow room smelled faintly of roasted duck and roses, and the glow from its crystal chandeliers bounced off every polished surface. He felt his jacket tighten on his shoulders, the same one he wore to job interviews, and suddenly wished it looked newer. But tonight wasn't about him, tonight was about Lily. She skipped ahead a step, her small black shoes tapping against the marble floor. The blue dress she wore had little silver stars stitched into the fabric, the one he had bought on clearance last Christmas after 3 extra shifts at the garage. Her hair was tied with a ribbon that had once belonged to her mum. She had been talking about this night for months, ever since she saw a princess dinner in one of her favourite movies. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice full of awe, "it's even prettier than in the pictures." He smiled, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Yeah, kiddo, it is." They reached the host's stand, where a tall man in a dark vest glanced at them over a polished reservation book. "Do you have a reservation?" he asked, voice smooth but cool, like he already knew the answer. Michael cleared his throat. "No, sir, I was hoping... It's my daughter's birthday. I thought maybe we could..." The man's eyes drifted over Michael's worn jacket, then down to Lily's dress. "I'm afraid we're at capacity tonight," he said, polite enough for anyone else to think it was genuine. But Michael could hear the undercurrent. "We do maintain a certain dress code and atmosphere for our guests." Lily tilted her head up toward her dad, her smile faltering. "But Daddy, you promised." Her voice was so quiet it nearly broke him. Michael forced himself to stay calm. "It's okay, kiddo, we'll find another place." The host gave a practiced smile. "There's a diner 2 blocks down that might be more comfortable." Michael nodded stiffly and took Lily's hand. He could feel her trying to be brave, but her grip was tighter than usual. They turned toward the door, ready to disappear into the chilly night. That's when a voice, calm, steady and commanding, came from one of the corner tables. "Excuse me, young man, would you mind stopping for a moment?" Michael froze, his heart thudding. He turned slowly toward the source. A woman in a simple black dress was rising from her chair, her silver hair catching the light. She looked at him with the kind of eyes that had seen more than most people could imagine, and in that instant he had no idea that this stranger was about to change everything. Michael hesitated, half turning toward the door, unsure if stopping would just make the embarrassment worse. But something in the woman's voice, the way it was steady but warm, kept him rooted in place. She crossed the room with quiet confidence, the kind that didn't need to prove anything. When she reached the host stand, the man behind it straightened immediately, as if he'd just been caught doing something wrong. "Mrs. Caldwell," he greeted her, his tone suddenly respectful. "Is there a problem?" Her eyes never left Michael and Lily. "Yes," she said simply. "They're having dinner with me tonight." The host opened his mouth, searching for words. It's just that you were about to turn away a father trying to give his daughter a birthday she'll remember," she interrupted, her voice calm but razor sharp. "In this restaurant that my late husband built to make people feel welcome." A ripple of silence moved through the dining room. Michael felt the weight of every pair of eyes on them, but for the first time that night it wasn't judgment, it was curiosity. Of course, Mrs. Caldwell," the host stammered, flipping through the reservation book. "I'll prepare a table immediately." "No need," she said. "Set 2 more places at mine." Finally, she turned to Michael with a smile that softened everything about her. "I'm Claire Caldwell. And what's your name, sweetheart?" she asked Lily. "Lily," the little girl said, barely above a whisper. "I'm 8 today." 8? Claire's eyes lit up. "Well, that calls for a proper celebration, and lucky for you, I happen to know the chef." Lily's eyes widened, a glimmer of excitement returning. She glanced at her dad as if asking for permission. Michael swallowed the tightness in his chest and nodded. "Thank you," he said quietly. "No thanks needed," Claire replied. "I can't stand seeing kindness pushed aside. Besides, I hate eating alone." As the host hurried to set the places, Michael and Lily followed Claire to a corner table by the window, the kind of spot that was clearly reserved for people who mattered. And though Michael didn't know it yet, this dinner would be the beginning of something neither of them could have imagined. From the moment they sat down, Lily's eyes kept darting around the table as if she had stepped straight into one of her storybooks. The crisp white tablecloth, the flicker of the candles, the delicate plates, it was everything she'd imagined a princess dinner would be. Claire leaned in slightly. So Lily, what's your favourite food? Lily hesitated, glancing at her dad before answering. Mac and cheese, but the kind in the blue box, she admitted shyly. Claire chuckled. Well, we might not have that exact brand here, but I think the chef can make something even better. How do you feel about a 3-cheese pasta with a little magic in it? Lily's face lit up. Yes, please! Michael sat back, still a little unsure how to relax in a place like this. He kept glancing at the menu, the prices quietly making his stomach knot. Claire seemed to notice. Don't worry about the menu, Michael, she said, her tone light but certain. Tonight's on me. Consider it my gift to Lily. He opened his mouth to protest, but she held up a hand. I've learned something in life. When someone offers kindness, the best thing you can do is accept it. You can return it in your own way later. The first course arrived, beautifully plated and smelling like heaven. Lily tried each bite with a level of focus Michael had never seen, as though she didn't want to miss a single flavour. Claire kept the conversation easy, asking Lily about school, about her favourite books, and even about the ribbon in her hair. When dessert finally came, the chef himself brought out a small chocolate cake, its top glowing with 8 tiny candles. Lily's mouth dropped open. Make a wish, Claire said softly. Lily squeezed her eyes shut, whispered something only she could hear, and blew out the candles in one long breath. The room gave a small, polite round of applause. For the first time in months, Michael saw his daughter's smile stretch from ear to ear without a trace of sadness behind it. And in that moment, he realised he wasn't just grateful for the meal. He was grateful for the way Claire had made them feel like they belonged here. As the last crumbs of chocolate cake disappeared from Lily's plate, Claire leaned back in her chair, resting her chin lightly on her hand. So, Michael, she began, what is it you do? He hesitated, his fingers brushing the rim of his coffee cup. I'm a mechanic, mostly brake jobs and oil changes. It's steady, but... He gave a small shrug. It's not always enough. I've been taking night classes, trying to finish my degree in engineering, hoping it'll give Lily and me a better shot. Claire's gaze softened, and her mum, Michael's voice caught just a little. Sarah passed away last year, cancer. He paused, glancing toward Lily, who was busy rearranging the silverware into patterns. It's been a lot, but I promised her I'd do my best. Keep things steady for Lily. Some days I feel like I'm just holding it together with duct tape. Claire didn't fill the silence with empty comfort. Instead, she nodded slowly, like she understood more than she could say. You're doing more than holding it together. That little girl worships you. You can see it in the way she looks at you. Michael gave a faint smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. I just wish I could give her more moments like tonight. She deserves the world. You're giving her something better, Claire replied gently. You're giving her love and consistency. Believe me, money can't buy either. They talked a little longer, about Lily's favourite teacher, about Claire's late husband who had built the Willow Room from a small bistro into one of the city's most beloved restaurants. Michael noticed the way her voice softened when she spoke about him, how the loss was still there beneath her polished grace. By the time the plates were cleared and the cheque discreetly tucked away, Michael felt an odd sense of peace, like the evening had been about far more than food. As they stood to leave, Claire rested a hand on his arm. I'd like to see you both again, she said simply. Maybe not here. My home has a kitchen that's far too quiet these days. You could come by for dinner one weekend. Bring your toolbox if you like. I've got a leaky faucet that's been driving me crazy. Michael chuckled, the first real laugh of the night. I think we can manage that. And as they stepped out into the cool night air, Lily clutching the ribbon-wrapped box of leftover cake, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end of a lucky evening. It was the start of something that might just change their lives. The following Saturday, Michael pulled his old pickup into a quiet, tree-lined street he'd only driven down once before. Claire's home sat near the end, a white 2-story with green shutters and a wide porch that looked like it had been part of the neighbourhood forever. Lily pressed her face to the window. Daddy, it looks like something from a Christmas movie. Michael smiled. Yeah, it does. Claire opened the front door before they even made it up the steps. She was dressed in jeans and a soft grey sweater, her silver hair pulled back loosely. "You made it," she said warmly. "And you brought reinforcements." She winked at Lily. Inside, the house smelled faintly of cinnamon and fresh bread. The kitchen was big and bright, with wide windows that let the afternoon light spill across the counters. On one side of the sink sat a faucet with a steady, rhythmic drip. "That's the culprit," Claire said, nodding toward it. Michael set down his toolbox while Lily wandered toward a large island stacked with baking supplies. "I thought we could make cookies," Claire told her. "Chocolate chip, unless you have a better idea." For the next hour, the house filled with the quiet rhythm of everyday life. Michael kneeling under the sink, tightening valves. Lily cracking eggs with careful concentration. Claire moving easily between them, her laugh light and unforced. At one point, Michael glanced up to see Lily wearing an apron 2 sizes too big, her cheeks dusted with flour. Claire was leaning over to show her how to measure sugar, speaking softly, patiently. It was a scene he hadn't realised he'd missed, the simple warmth of another adult caring about his daughter without him having to ask. By the time the faucet had stopped dripping and the cookies cooled on the counter, the sun was low in the sky. They sat around the kitchen table, eating warm cookies and sipping milk. "You know," Claire said, brushing a crumb from her sweater, "my husband used to invite people here all the time. He said a home was meant to be shared after he passed. I guess I forgot that." Michael nodded, not trusting himself to say much. Lily looked between them. "Can we come back?" she asked, her voice small but hopeful. Claire smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." And in that moment, Michael realised that this wasn't just kindness anymore. This was the start of a real friendship, one that was slowly weaving itself into the fabric of their lives. One Saturday turned into another, and before long it became their routine. Every other weekend, Michael's old pickup would rumble down that quiet street, and Claire's porch light would already be on, like she'd been waiting for them. Sometimes Michael came with his toolbox, fixing a wobbly stair railing or replacing a screen door. Other times, they just came to share a meal. Lily learned to make more than cookies. She could knead bread dough, roll out pie crust, and chop vegetables with a little paring knife under Claire's watchful eye. Michael noticed how natural it felt these afternoons that stretched into evenings. He'd work at the sink or in the yard while Lily's laughter drifted from the kitchen. Claire never hovered over him when he worked, but she always had a glass of iced tea ready when he came back inside, her way of saying she appreciated the help without making it formal. One chilly evening in late fall, Claire invited them to stay for dinner again. She'd made chicken pot pie from scratch, the kind with a golden crust that cracked open to release steam. Afterward, they lingered at the table long after the plates were cleared, talking about everything from Lily's school projects to Michael's night classes. Claire asked him how the classes were going, and he admitted they weren't easy. "It's hard to stay awake some nights after working all day," he said, "but I'm close. Just a few more courses, and I'll have that degree." She studied him for a moment. "And what will you do then?" Michael thought about it. "Get a better job, hopefully. Something stable with benefits. Something that gives Lily more than I can right now." Claire's eyes softened, the corners crinkling. "You know, my husband always said the best investments aren't in buildings or stocks, they're in people." Michael wasn't sure what to say to that. But as they helped her clear the table, he noticed the way she looked at Lily, with genuine affection, not just polite interest. When it was time to leave, Claire walked them to the door and handed Lily a small paper bag. Inside were 2 slices of pie wrapped in foil. "For tomorrow," she said with a smile. Driving home that night, Michael glanced at his daughter, already half asleep in the passenger seat, her head leaning against the window. And for the first time in a long while, he felt like maybe, just maybe, life was shifting in the right direction. The first snowfall of the season came early that year. By the time Michael and Lily made it to Claire's house one Saturday afternoon, her porch steps were dusted in white, and the air smelled faintly of pine from the wreath on her door. Inside, the warmth wrapped around them like a blanket. Claire had a pot of soup simmering on the stove, the kind that filled the whole house with the scent of garlic and herbs. Lily ran straight to the kitchen island where a puzzle was already spread out, a half-finished winter scene that looked almost like the street outside. Michael shrugged off his jacket. "What's on the list today? Another leaky faucet?" Claire smiled, handing him a mug of hot cocoa instead. "Not today. Today you're off duty. Just sit, eat and keep me company." They settled into an easy rhythm, soup steaming in their bowls, the snow falling softly outside. Conversation drifted from light topics, Lily's upcoming holiday concert, a new tool Michael had picked up, to quieter, more personal things. Claire asked about his classes again, and Michael admitted money was getting tighter. "I can cover the basics," he said, "but tuition's been eating into everything. I've thought about taking a break until I can save up." Claire set down her spoon. "And how close are you to finishing?" "2 semesters," he said. "If I can keep going, I could be done by next year." There was a pause, and then Claire said it almost casually, though her eyes were steady on his. "What if I could help with that?" Michael blinked. "Claire, you've already done more than enough." She shook her head. "I'm not talking about charity, I'm talking about investment. You've shown me who you are over these months. You work hard, you show up for your daughter, and you don't cut corners. People like that deserve a hand, not a handout." Michael didn't answer right away. Pride and gratitude wrestled quietly inside him. "It's a lot to accept," he said finally. "I know," she replied gently, "but think of it as me holding the door open. You still have to walk through it." Lily, oblivious to the weight of the moment, looked up from her puzzle. "Daddy, if you finish school faster, does that mean more time with me?" Michael smiled faintly. "Yeah, kiddo, that's exactly what it means." Claire's gaze softened even more. "Then I'd say we've already got our answer." And as the snow continued to fall, Michael realised this was no longer just a friendship born out of a single act of kindness. It was becoming a turning point in both their lives. 2 weeks later, Michael found himself sitting at Claire's kitchen table again, a folder of paperwork spread out in front of him. He had gone back and forth on whether to accept her help, but in the end her words had stuck with him. She wasn't offering a handout, she was opening a door. Claire poured him a cup of coffee and set it beside the folder. "It's simple," she said. "The tuition goes directly to the school. You keep doing what you've been doing. No strings except one. You have to promise me you'll actually celebrate when you graduate." Michael gave a quiet laugh. "I'm not much of a party guy." "Then I'll throw it for you," she said matter-of-factly. Lily was on the living room floor with Claire's old golden retriever, giggling every time the dog rolled onto his back for a belly rub. The sound filled the room with a kind of lightness Michael hadn't realised he'd missed. As they went through the forms, Claire shared more about her late husband. How he had grown up with very little, how he'd built the Willow Room from a run-down cafe, how he believed in helping people who worked hard but just needed one break to change their trajectory. "That's why I know he'd approve of this," she said. "You remind me of him in a lot of ways." Michael looked down at the papers, his hand resting on the pen. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." Claire shook her head. "You'll repay me by doing for someone else what I'm doing for you, when the time comes." Something in her voice made him realise she wasn't just helping him finish school, she was investing in a future where Lily would see her father as a man who took an opportunity and turned it into something bigger. When the last form was signed, Claire tucked the folder away and stood. "Now," she said with a smile, "I believe there's a lasagna in the oven with our names on it." Michael followed her into the kitchen, feeling the weight on his shoulders ease just a little. For the first time in years, the path ahead didn't feel like an uphill climb he had to face alone. The new semester started on a cold January morning. Michael left the garage at noon, traded his oil-stained coveralls for a clean shirt, and drove straight to campus. It had been years since he'd felt this kind of determination. Every lecture, every assignment now felt like a step towards something solid, not just for him, but for Lily. Claire kept in touch more than ever. On nights when he had class, she'd invite Lily over for dinner and homework at her kitchen table. Sometimes Michael would swing by afterward to find them both in aprons, flour on their sleeves, a half-finished pie cooling on the counter. Other times, Lily would be curled up on the couch with a blanket, the old golden retriever asleep at her feet, listening to Claire read one of her late husband's cookbooks like it was a bedtime story. It wasn't just help, it was a kind of steady presence Michael hadn't realised his daughter needed. And maybe, if he was honest, he needed it too. One Saturday afternoon, while repairing a loose fence post in Claire's backyard, Michael caught sight of Lily running through the snow-dusted grass, her laugh bright and unrestrained. Claire was watching from the porch, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug. Their eyes met, and she gave him a small nod. The kind of quiet acknowledgement that said, "She's doing okay. You're doing okay." Later that evening, as they sat down to dinner, Claire asked how school was going. Michael told her about a project he'd been working on, designing a more efficient lift system for small garages. For the first time, he heard himself talk about the future like it was real, like it was within reach. "That's the man I see," Claire said, smiling. "The one who's building something not just for himself, but for her." She glanced at Lily, who was busy cutting her bread into tiny shapes. Driving home that night, Lily chatted about the pie they'd baked and the puzzle they'd finished. Michael listened, one hand on the wheel, the other tapping lightly against the steering column in time with her words. It struck him then, these months hadn't just been about a scholarship or free meals. They'd been about building a life where kindness wasn't a rare surprise, but a constant, reliable thing. And that, he realised, was changing him as much as it was changing her. The day of Michael's graduation came with clear skies and a sharp spring breeze. The campus lawn was dotted with families taking pictures, the air buzzing with the sound of laughter and clinking camera shutters. Michael adjusted the cap on his head, feeling both proud and strangely nervous. From across the crowd, he spotted Lily weaving through the throng, her blue dress swaying just like it had the night at the Willow Room. Claire followed behind her, carrying a small bouquet of lilies. "Daddy!" Lily called out, running into his arms. "You did it!" Michael laughed, lifting her up. "We did it, kiddo." Claire stepped forward, handing him the flowers. "These are for you," she said, her voice warm. "And before you ask, yes, you're still getting a party." He shook his head with a grin. "You never let me off the hook, do you?" "Not when it comes to celebrating the good stuff," she said. That evening, the three of them sat around Claire's dining table. Instead of the usual home-cooked meal, Michael had ordered dinner from a small family-owned place he knew Claire liked. It wasn't fancy, but it was his way of saying thank you without making it feel like a farewell. Halfway through the meal, Michael cleared his throat. "I've been thinking," he began, "about how much you've done for us, and I can't just leave it at thank you." Claire tilted her head, curious. "I got an offer this week," he continued, "a position at a company in the city. It's good pay, solid hours, and I'm taking it. But I also signed up to mentor a student in the same night program I went through. I want to give someone else the same chance you gave me." For a moment, Claire didn't say anything. Then she smiled, slow, genuine, proud. "That's the deal we made, isn't it? You'd pass it on." Lily piped up between bites of cake. "Does that mean we can still come over on Saturdays?" Claire reached over, brushing a crumb from Lily's cheek. "I was hoping you'd say that." Michael looked around the table, at the woman who had stepped in when they needed it most, at the little girl whose laughter had carried him through the hardest days, and felt something settle deep in his chest. They weren't just guests anymore, they were family. And as they lingered over dessert, the light in Claire's dining room spilling out onto the quiet street, Michael knew this was only the beginning of the life they were building together. Sometimes, a simple act of kindness can open doors that hard work alone cannot. The true value of receiving help is not just in what it gives you, but in the chance it creates to pass that same kindness forward, turning gratitude into a lasting cycle of good. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. I'm truly grateful for that. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you again soon, here on Rain Inside.